Rylingo here, and this week I'm going to be reviewing The Legend of Zelda: Skyward Sword. Now, because the Legend of Zelda fans can be a little forceful, I feel the need to include this clip at the start of my review.
It represents his personal and some might say controversial viewpoint. It's therefore his viewpoint, it's his viewpoint, it's his viewpoint, it's a man's viewpoint. It's not a big bunch of facts carved into a concrete block by a fact computer, all right? It's one man's viewpoint. Are you ready for it?
Yes.
Good. Here we go.
That said and done, I would like to state that I enjoyed Skyward Sword. A little bit. Skyward Sword is a prequel to the other Zelda games. Speaking of Zelda, she isn't a princess in this game. And Hyrule is nowhere to be seen at the beginning. Link is brought up on the airborne island called Skyloft. Link is in a knight's college where he will learn to patrol the skies on his loft wing. After Zelda is sent spiraling to the land below the sky, Link gives chase, entering the unknown. The pacing was a little bit slow at the start, and I felt like this game held my hand for way too long. It's a little bit annoying that I have to go through 3 of your princess is in another castle dungeons before we have any proper plot progression. It's immediately clear that they've tried to marry the graphics of Wind Waker with the darker tone of Twilight Princess, and it actually works fairly well. This game does a good job of rounding out the characters. Zelda is much more adventurous than in previous games. She isn't capture fodder like she usually is. She runs off and does her own shit, leaving Link to play catch up. There are also hints of a romantic relationship between Link and Zelda. They actually work quite well together, and I was kinda rooting for them. Your Knights Academy rival Groose is a welcome addition to the game. I love his character arc, and that he changed from being an annoying villain to an unlikely hero. This game's villain is Girahim. Girahim is about as threatening as belly button fluff. Despite me continually whipping his ass in very boring battles, he always acts like he is somehow more powerful, which leaves me with the only explanation that Girahim is fucking stupid. Skyward Sword uses Wii Motion Plus and claims it has one-to-one controls. In reality, your sword is not one-to-one unless you're moving it very slowly. Start making fast slashing motions and the game can't keep up, causing Link to blast out a stream of random attacks. For a lot of villains, you have to be careful where you hit them as they constantly change their weak spots. This means you have to plan where you're supposed to strike them from. Now, if your enemy leaves a gap from a right to left strike, this means you have to strike right to left. And if I've just after struck vertically, that means I have to move my hand down here before striking like that. By the time I move my hand down, the enemy will change his stats to block me. This is really annoying. If I try and move my hand down quicker, Link will then see this as a vertical downward strike. This becomes a real big problem, and it means a lot of the time you just result in using shield parry instead of actually fighting with your sword. Now, because you're using shield parry, a lot of enemies that should be easy to dispose take a long time and it drags the battles out. Alternatively, you could swing crazily, and that works quite often actually, as long as you have decent health. But that kind of removes the whole point of having one-to-one control. In general, these controls just didn't work for me. The controls for the loft wings are also problematic. I found it really awkward to fly, and it just felt unresponsive for me. The freefall mechanics are also excruciating to use. I ended up failing the tutorial for this nearly 30 times. Credit where credit's due. The whip controls worked perfectly for me. The game seemed to know instinctively where I was aiming at. The little beetle item also seemed fairly easy to control, which is weird because you'd think it would feel similar to the loft wings. When looking around on forums and review sites, it's very obvious that a lot of fans loved the Skyward Sword controls, so this is obviously more of a personal issue for me. A good way to solve this problem would have been to give the players a choice between Motion Plus or the classic controller. Now, I've always been pro-choice. When it comes to controllers! This game has a number of minor niggles that annoyed me throughout. Most of them are not serious, but it does leave me wondering how they weren't picked up on. Jumping off your loft wing onto Skyloft will have you teleported back to the entrance. This is really immersion breaking, and it's really annoying when one of the chests I'm trying to get to on a floating island, I land on it and then it teleports me back to the entrance of Skyloft. In previous Zelda games, if you'd heard some conversation before, you could skip quickly through it, but not in Skyward Sword. Now all you can do is hold the button in, which will increase the speed slightly. This is not good enough. All the shopkeepers go through several lines of dialogue complaining if you don't buy stuff for them, and you can't skip that either. These lines happen every time you don't buy something from them. I've bought an item just to avoid those goddamn speeches. Skyward Sword introduces a new stamina meter. Now the stamina meter is used up whenever you do various different exercises, like a spin attack, like climbing something, or when running. Now this is an issue because the meter goes down very quickly whilst running, and I want to get from point A to point B. Okay, so if I have to stop and let that fill up, it's wasting my time. Zelda tries to fix this by putting little bulbs around the place that will refill your meter, but this is just ignoring a much better fix of having running do very little to the stamina bar. That just makes more sense. The new door key puzzles are awkward and control really badly. Now, I was able to figure them out fairly quickly, but the controls held me back. This game has 3 small worlds, which all gain extensions later in the game. These extensions don't add much more to explore. One of the worlds becomes flooded, and when I first came across this, I thought it was a great idea. But I was then made to find several small underwater tadpoles to complete the section. At this point, whilst playing, I wished to turn off my Wii and take a break. The problem? I couldn't find a place to save. I was forced to continue searching for the tadpoles. I literally spent 2 hours searching before I found the final 2 missing tadpoles. This is not good game design. It's clear that the areas outside of the dungeons have become miniature dungeons themselves. Now, whilst that's a nice change, it also means there are less peaceful areas to explore at your leisure. The pointer requires recentering relatively frequently, particularly after a fighting sequence. When collecting bugs and other items, you're made to read a pointless description, and then the game shows you where the items are placed on the collector screen. This is a pointless waste of time because you never use the collector screen when using these items. Also, when you turn the game off, Skyward Sword forgets that you've seen the information for each item and decides to display it for you again when you turn the game on. And finally, my biggest complaint about Skyward Sword, it's your new partner Fi. Imagine a cross between Navi and that bloody owl which is now strapped to your sword. Fi is more annoying than Navi, and her tips are rarely useful. Her advice also sounds really condescending. Fi will also take time to remind me that I have low health, but I already know I have low health because of the damn low health noise ringing in my ear. Why does Zelda still have that noise? Even Pokemon, the original haters of innovation, have turned it into a song. Oh, and the stamina meter beeps as well. Why does everything have to beep in this game? Fi will also tell you when the batteries are about to run out. 3 hours later, I'm still using the same set of batteries, meaning that her information is completely wrong. Also, whilst using the harp, Fi opens her mouth like she is singing, but frankly, it just looks ridiculous. That's not to say this game isn't good. It's got lots of nice things, like great bosses. There are some really fun original bosses in here, like the pirate. I've never seen Link fight a pirate before. That would probably seem more impressive, but we have to fight these bosses several times. I'm sorry. On to more good points. The newly implemented upgrade system works well. The upgrades provide a good money sink in a series where there has always been too much money late in the game. Hero mode is a welcome inclusion for those who want more of a challenge. It's too bad that you have to complete the game first, because I'm sure there's a lot of veterans out there who would have liked this harder option from the beginning. You can expect a lot of fun puzzles and dungeons. I really enjoyed a sequence later in the game where Link loses all his equipment. This made me realise how far Link had travelled and how much strength he had gained. It made me appreciate my equipment so much more. While Skyloft doesn't have the size or scale of Hyrule Field, it is still a lot of fun to explore. I liked how each character has their own little side stories to check out, and all of the students in the Knights Academy have their own room. Even Zelda, although hers is harder to get into. Once you get in there, you can do a number of things, like read her diary, go through her drawers, or sleep in her bed. Wait, not like that! Your mind's the dirty one, not mine. The music is fantastic as always. Zelda scores never let me down. Now, I do prefer Wind Waker's soundtrack, but this is still fantastic. In conclusion, Skyward Sword is a weird Zelda title. They've decided to experiment with a lot of new ideas rather than perfect old ones. This means there are both good and bad consequences because some of the new ideas work and some don't. Twilight Princess felt a little bit derivative of Ocarina of Time. Skyward Sword feels new. It's a fun adventure, but not a must buy. I give Skyward Sword 7.2 out of 10.